Imagine two men standing in the same kitchen, drinking the same cheap coffee, wearing the same worn-out sneakers. One of them has $11 in his checking account. The other has $10 million sitting in investments. And yet, if you walked into that kitchen right now, you would not be able to tell them apart. That's the part nobody warns you about. Money does not announce itself. It does not glow. It does not change your face or your voice or the way you tuck in your shirt. What changes is quieter than that and far stranger. And by the end of this video, you're going to understand exactly what shifts inside a person's life at every single stage of wealth, from having nothing to having more money than they ever imagined possible. Before we go further, if you have ever wondered what your life would actually look like at $100,000 or $1 million or 10 million, hit like and subscribe right now, because this channel is going to map that entire journey for you, stage by stage, so you know exactly what is coming before you get there. Let's start at the bottom. $0, or worse, -$. Picture a woman named Sarah, 26 years old. She just got paid, and by the time rent, her phone bill, and a late fee on her credit card are subtracted, she has $41 left for the next 11 days. She is not lazy. She is not bad with money in some cartoonish way. She works retail. She picks up extra shifts. She skips the coffee she wants and buys the coffee that's on sale. But here is the part that almost nobody talks about when they discuss being broke. It is not just a financial state. It is a psychological prison. When you have no cushion, your brain treats every decision like a survival decision. Should you fix the small crack in your windshield or wait? Should you buy the cheaper groceries that will leave you hungry by Thursday, or the ones that cost $12 more you don't have? Researchers who study poverty found something remarkable. The stress of financial scarcity can occupy so much mental bandwidth that it actually lowers a person's ability to think clearly, in the same way that missing an entire night of sleep does. Being broke doesn't just empty your wallet. It empties your mind of the space needed to plan a way out. This is why the advice, just budget better, feels so insulting to someone at zero. It's like telling someone drowning to simply swim more efficiently. What actually changes a person's trajectory at this stage isn't a spreadsheet. It's one decision that breaks the cycle of reacting to money instead of directing it. And for almost everyone who eventually escapes this stage, that first decision is smaller than you'd expect. It's the moment they save their first $1,000. Here's what nobody tells you about that number. $1,000 will not make you rich. It will not buy a car, a house, or freedom. But it does something invisible and enormous. It removes you from the emergency loop. Before that $1,000, a flat tire was a crisis that could sink your entire month. After it, a flat tire is simply an inconvenience. You pay for it, and you move on with your day. Think about what that actually means for a human brain that has been living in survival mode. For the first time, there's a buffer between a bad day and a bad month. Psychologists call this an internal locus of control, the belief that your actions actually shape your outcomes, instead of feeling like life is just happening to you. That first $1,000 is where that belief is born. It's not about the money. It's about proving to yourself that saving is even possible. But here's what's interesting. Almost everyone who reaches this stage feels an urge to immediately spend it. A new phone, a trip, something to reward the sacrifice. This is loss aversion working against you, that deep human wiring that makes losing what you have feel far more painful than gaining something new feels good. Except in this case it flips, because after living with nothing, having something suddenly feels burdensome to hold on to. The urge to spend it away is actually your brain trying to return to the familiar discomfort of having nothing. Because nothing, strangely, feels safer than the fear of protecting something and failing. The people who break through this stage are the ones who resist that urge. Not because they're more disciplined by nature, but because they've made the money boring. They've automated it. They don't see it every day, so they don't feel the itch to touch it. Now here's where things get interesting, because the next stage is the one most people picture when they imagine making it. $10,000 in the bank. This is the stage where you start sleeping differently. Not because your life has changed dramatically, but because your nervous system finally exhales. $10,000 means you could lose your job tomorrow and still pay rent for a few months while you figure things out. It means a medical bill won't destroy you. This is usually the first amount of money where people start to feel for the first time in their adult lives like an actual adult. Not because of age, because of stability. But there's a psychological trap hiding inside this stage, and it catches almost everyone. At $10,000, you finally look successful enough on the surface that people around you start expecting you to spend like it. Friends assume you'll split the expensive dinner evenly. Family assumes you can help out. Social media shows you people who look like they have far more than you, spending like they have far more than you. And suddenly the goalpost moves. This is the beginning of what's sometimes called lifestyle creep, and it is one of the sneakiest forces in personal finance because it doesn't feel like a mistake while it's happening. It feels like a reward you've earned. Imagine a guy named Marcus. He hits $10,000 in savings for the first time in his life at 29 years old. 2 months later, he leases a car he doesn't need because for the first time, the payment feels affordable. 18 months after that, his savings account is back down to $1,400, but now he has a shinier car and a higher monthly bill. He didn't get poorer. He got trapped in a more expensive version of exactly where he started. This is the stage where the entire trajectory of someone's financial life gets decided. Right here, quietly, without anyone noticing. Not at $10 million. Right here at $10,000. The people who escape Marcus's trap are the ones who understand a strange truth about money. The goal isn't to feel rich. The goal is to feel calm. And feeling calm rarely comes from spending. It comes from watching a number slowly climb month after month, boring, steady, and quiet. Which brings us to the stage where things genuinely start to feel different. $100,000. This is often called the hardest number to reach and the easiest number to grow once you're there. And there's real math behind that. Going from $0 to $100,000 is almost entirely a battle of behavior, income, and sacrifice. But once you cross it, compound growth starts doing meaningful work alongside you. If that $100,000 is invested and grows at a historical average return, it can add tens of thousands of dollars in value over a decade without you lifting a finger. This is the exact moment where money stops being just a reward for labor and starts becoming its own quiet employee, working while you sleep. But here's what actually changes in someone's daily life at $100,000, and it's not what people expect. It's not private jets. It's something smaller and, honestly, more powerful. It's the ability to say no. No to a job that disrespects you, because you have 3, 4, 5 months of runway if you needed to walk away. No to a toxic relationship where money was used as leverage or control. No to panic when the car breaks down or the roof leaks, because for the first time, an emergency is just an expense, not a catastrophe. Imagine a woman named Priya. She's 34, she has $98,000 saved, and her boss asks her to work through her daughter's school recital for the 3rd time this year. The old version of Priya, the one with $1,100 in savings, would have said yes immediately because saying no felt too dangerous. The Priya with almost $100,000 pauses, and for the first time in her career, she says, "I can't. I have somewhere to be." Nothing about her job changed. Nothing about her boss changed. What changed was the quiet power sitting behind her, giving her permission to choose herself. This is the real transformation of hitting 6 figures. It's not lifestyle. It's leverage. But here's something almost nobody discusses about this stage, and it's the reason so many people plateau right here for years. At $100,000, you finally have enough to feel comfortable, and comfort, ironically, becomes the enemy of growth. This is where a lot of people stop learning new skills, stop taking career risks, stop investing aggressively, because the fear that once pushed them forward is quieted down. Psychologists call this the hedonic adaptation of security. You adapted to danger being gone. So now you have to find a new reason to keep pushing, and that reason has to come from ambition instead of fear. That's a much harder motivation to sustain, because fear is loud and ambition is quiet. The people who don't get stuck here are the ones who set a new target before they arrive at the old one. They ask a new question, not "how do I feel safe?" but What would it take to never worry about money again? Which takes us to the number that changes everything on paper, but almost nothing in daily life at first. $1 million. Here's the twist that surprises almost everyone the moment they cross this line. You do not feel like a millionaire. You feel exactly the same as you did the day before, except now there's an extra zero in an app on your phone. There's no parade. There's no ceremony. Most millionaires in America, when surveyed, describe their daily habits as remarkably ordinary. They drive used cars. They shop at regular grocery stores. They live in the same house they bought years earlier. This destroys the Hollywood image most people carry in their heads. The mansion, the private chef, the constant luxury, but it reveals something far more important about what wealth actually is. Wealth is invisible by design, because visible wealth is usually a sign that money is being spent as fast as it comes in, not built. Let's talk about a man named David. He hits $1 million in net worth at 41 years old. Mostly through a retirement account he contributed to steadily for 18 years, plus the value of his home. The week he crosses that number, his life looks identical to the week before. Same job, same car, same Tuesday night dinner routine. But something has shifted underneath the surface that will change the next 20 years of his life. At $1 million invested, using a widely cited rule among financial planners, David could theoretically withdraw around $40,000 a year, adjusted over time, without running out of money for the rest of his life. That means David has, for the first time, something most people never get to feel. Optionality. Not luxury. Optionality. The ability to shift careers, retire early, take a massive pay cut for meaningful work, or ride out a recession without panic. Here's what most people never realize about the psychology at this stage. Once someone has $1 million, the emotional relationship with money often becomes more anxious, not less. Because now there's something significant to lose. This is loss aversion again, but in a completely different costume. At $0, you're afraid of not having enough. At $1 million, you're afraid of losing what took 2 decades to build. This is why so many people who reach 7 figures become obsessively conservative with their investments right at the moment they finally have enough of a foundation to take calculated risks. The healthiest millionaires, the ones who keep growing instead of freezing in fear, learn to separate their identity from the number. The money is a tool they built, is not who they are. That distinction sounds simple, but it is the difference between someone who keeps growing their wealth for decades and someone who spends the next 20 years anxiously guarding a static number, terrified to touch it, terrified to lose it, essentially trading their freedom for a false sense of safety. Now here's where the story becomes almost unrecognizable to the version of that person who once had $41 for 11 days. $10 million. At this stage, something strange and rarely discussed happens. Money stops being about survival, comfort, or even freedom, and becomes almost entirely about identity, purpose, and legacy. The daily stresses that dominate life at $0, and even the stresses that linger at 100,000 or 1 million, simply do not exist here in the same form. Grocery prices don't matter. A surprise $5,000 expense doesn't register as anything more than mildly annoying. The primal fear that drove every decision at the beginning of this journey has almost entirely dissolved. But here's the part that shocks people who haven't studied this stage closely. Research on extremely wealthy individuals reveals something counterintuitive. Many of them still report anxiety about money, just a completely different flavor of it. Not will I survive, but am I doing something meaningful with this? Not can I pay rent, but who am I now that I don't have to fight for anything? Imagine a woman named Elena. She built a company from her garage, sold it years later for enough to cross the $10 million mark, and found herself sitting in her enormous, quiet house 6 months later, feeling something she never expected. Emptiness. Not because the money didn't help. It absolutely did. Her family was financially secure for generations. But the daily fire that fueled her for 15 years, the fire of needing to prove something, needing to escape scarcity, needing to build, suddenly had nothing left to burn. She had won the game, and now she had to invent an entirely new one to feel alive again. This is the stage where the wealthy often become almost unrecognizable from the wealthy stereotype people imagine. They start funding causes. They start mentoring others. They start searching, often for the first time since they were broke and hungry for success, for a version of meaning that isn't measured in dollars at all. The irony is staggering. The very drive that got them here, the hunger, the fear, the need to escape struggle, has to be replaced by something entirely different to keep them fulfilled once the struggle is gone. So here is what actually changes at every single stage of this journey, laid out plainly. At 0, your mind is consumed by survival, and the goal is simply to create your first buffer. At 10,000, your nervous system finally exhales, and the danger is comfort disguised as reward. At 100,000, you gain the power to say no, and the danger is comfort disguised as finish line. At 1,000,000, you gain real optionality, and the danger is fear disguised as caution. At 10,000,000, you gain total freedom, and the danger is emptiness disguised as arrival. Notice the pattern. At every single stage, the danger isn't running out of money. The danger is stopping too early emotionally, mistaking safety for the destination, when safety was only ever supposed to be the starting point for something bigger. Here's what you can actually do with this information starting today, no matter which stage you're in right now. If you're near 0, stop trying to build wealth and start trying to build your first $1,000 buffer, because that single number changes your brain more than any other amount of money you will ever save. If you're near 10,000, resist the urge to reward yourself with a bigger lifestyle and instead automate your savings so the money disappears from your sight before your emotions can talk you out of protecting it. If you're near 100,000, set your next target before you arrive so comfort doesn't quietly convince you to stop climbing. If you're near 1,000,000, separate your identity from the number, because the people who keep growing wealth are the ones who see money as a tool, not as a scoreboard for their worth. And if you ever reach 10,000,000, understand now, before you get there, that the emptiness Elena felt is common, and the cure isn't more money. It's purpose you build on purpose long before the finish line arrives. Remember those two men standing in the same kitchen at the start of this video. Same coffee, same sneakers, same face. The truth is, the difference between them was never visible from the outside, and it never will be. It was built in thousands of quiet decisions, made when nobody was watching, at every single stage along the way. Wherever you are right now, $0 or 10,000,000, the next decision you make about money is the one writing your story. Make it count. If this video gave you a new way of thinking about money, let me know in the comments which stage you're in right now. Share this with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe to Money Elevate, because we're mapping this entire journey one stage at a time.